Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Unapologetically Me podcast. I am Jessica, I am your host. And y'all, I recorded this yesterday, and full transparency, I did not like my take yesterday. It felt too fake and scripted, and I made a promise to myself and to the first episode of this to say that I'm not going to do that. I have bullet points, not a script, and I kind of let the bullet points be more of a script. So that being said, let's pivot a little bit to a fun little introduction to this episode, because oddly enough, I posted a couple of clips from the first episode to TikTok to share the podcast and to start kind of helping build followers and branch out and start that whole process. And I got hate already. I got a lot of hate, and I got a lot of hate with the Charlie Kirk section of my podcast that I shared. And full transparency, you guys, the hate was mostly directed at Charlie specific, and talking about how I was kind of stupid and ignorant for being inspired by him. And I politely want to say to those people, I don't care what your opinions are of me. I don't really care. And all that hate is just entirely unnecessary. Truly unnecessary. So I got hate, and one of the hate comments I got was that you should be able to run a mile to have a podcast mic, to have the ability to do this. And that was a dig at me and a dig at my weight. And the ignorance of that is just astounding to me. But it has an impact for the fact that this episode is about the body I live in and my health journey, my life journey in the last 5 years, 10 years, and giving a very easy introduction into the health journey and path that I've been on. So yeah, because I've had a really complicated relationship with my body in the last 5 years, especially, but honestly, since I was a teenager. And I don't think that aspect is talked about enough for women, that we have such complicated relationships with our bodies. And to me, it's just it's such a process to start learning how to accept and appreciate and love the body you have. And being a woman that has gone through what I've gone through, it's really hard to figure out how to project that to the public without looking like you're chasing sympathy. Because at this point in my life, I'm not chasing sympathy. I'm not chasing anything in that regard towards my health. It's purely a tool and something that I feel is important to share. So that being said, my body in the last 5 years has been a battlefield, a teacher, comforting in home, and a complete and total stranger, all wrapped into one. And I say that because it really truly has been the weirdest, hardest season of my life in the last 5 years. And my health journey and my body acceptance and love and all of that has been one of the biggest factors of the difficulty of the last 5 years. And we're going to dive into that, because I thought about talking about my life in my teens and my early 20s. And for about 2 seconds, we're going to go over what I thought of my body in my 20s. I thought that skinny was the only thing that was important. That was the stigma and the stereotype, was you had to be a skinny girl and you had to be blonde and this and that and all the different stereotypes that I felt like I had to live into and be to be liked and feel pretty and have that validation. And in my 20s, that was suffocating. And I dealt with that a lot and struggled with my identity as a whole because of it. Body identity and just overall feeling good in my skin. Controversial moment here too. I have always been a woman. I've always been a tomboy. I've always been kind of one of the guys. I went to school for automotive collision. I can build a car. I can do a lot of mechanical work. I can do a lot of things that are kind of that male dominated thing. But I am a very proud woman of the industry that I was in for over a decade of my life. So that aspect I wanted to address as the controversial thing. I am of the mind that there are two genders, and I am very proud to be a woman, even with what I've faced in the last few years. There's no doubt about it for me that I'm proud of that. 5 years ago, I was in a car accident, and the car accident part was scary, sure. I ended up walking away from the accident after they cut the door off, which was a blessing. The only major injury that I had from the accident specifically was a broken collarbone, this collarbone, and the adrenaline and everything really didn't have me feeling a whole lot of it at the point of the accident. And we got to the hospital, and to make sure that there wasn't any internal bleeding or any, major worries or concerns, they had me do a CT. And my dad was there with me. My mom was on her way, and by the time my mom got there, the doctor walked in and kind of read the room and goes, "Are you aware of the mass in your abdomen?" And time stopped. Time just froze in that moment. And I was like, "There's a mass in my abdomen?" And he's like, "So you had no idea?" "No, none." He's like, "It's a pretty decent size, so we're gonna refer you to your gynecologist because it looks like it's in that area." Okay. Panic fully sitting in that there is something seriously wrong that, had I not been in the car accident, might have been overlooked. Continually overlooked, because the story gets better, I promise you. But was something that I don't know that we would have caught when we caught it. So I saw an orthopedic surgeon for my collarbone, and then I saw my gynecologist, and I couldn't drive at the time because of the accident and the fact that my arm was in a sling. So my dad took me and dropped me off for my appointment, and I went in, did my women's wellness with them. They reviewed the mass, and her face just dropped. The nurse practitioner's face just dropped. And she goes, "We need to send you to an oncologist, and you need to see her right away." And my brain was just frozen. I'm like, how is it possible that I have been seeing you and seeing this doctor for the last 15, 20 years of my life, and, well, roughly 15-ish years. And how is it that I come and see you once a year and this hasn't been caught, kind of thing. Full panic, just so you know. It's a crazy situation to walk in and have them go, "By the way, we're going to send you to an oncologist," because oncology is cancer. And that thought, and she's like, "The reason we're sending you is because we don't know what it is, and it's going to have to probably be surgically removed, and an oncologist is going to be the best option." So they referred me to my oncologist. And my dad drives me up to my appointment, and we meet with this woman who was beyond incredible and had just the utmost grace of handling the situation that I was in. And I did ultrasounds, I did blood work, we did all the tests and all the things. And she's like, well, I don't know for sure what it is, but we need to get you scheduled for surgery. And that was in December of 2020. And I had the surgery in January of 2021. And I had never had surgery before. Up until the car accident, I had never broken a bone before. And I'm gonna knock on wood because that's a oddity for a lot of people. And I was scared. Having surgery in the middle of COVID was really, really traumatizing, because you can only have one person there with you. My dad drove me to the hospital. My mom met me there, and my mom was the person that sat in the waiting room for me to get out. It was an outpatient procedure. They did it laparoscopically. So before the surgery, they thought it was just something on my ovary. And she goes, if it is your ovary, do I have your consent to take it? And I just didn't even know. I'm like, yeah, take it. I'm like, we're running with the logic that this is something completely benign, not cancer, and I can keep my other ovary, have kids, do the whole family thing and not have to worry. And very quickly, that whole situation shifted. They took my ovary, and I went home and started the recovery process. And 2 weeks later, she wanted to see me for my follow-up and to talk about the test results, because they sent it off to a lab to have it processed. And my dad drove me to my appointment, and went with me and sat with me in the room. And we had already been having the conversations of the worst case scenario, best case scenario, with the situation. And I can remember getting into that room with him and just feeling heavy, feeling super heavy. At the time, I was dating someone long distance. And he was 1,000 miles away, and he was at work. Excuse me. And I was supposed to call him and tell him what the results are, and he was going to stop what he was doing for that. So my dad's in the room with me. Doctor comes in, and she's got this very grave, very grim face. And she goes, I am so sorry to tell you, but it was not benign. You are today officially being diagnosed with stage 1 ovarian cancer. And she's like, the good news is we got it all just within the ovary. It never ruptured. There's no concern, immediate concern, but you have cancer. And I remember breaking down crying, and I remember feeling scared. I remember looking at my dad, and he was crying. And we were trying to figure out what the next steps were and what it looked like. And she's like, this is not something you have to decide today. So at 27 years old, with no kids and a new relationship that I was in at the time, I just watched every potential hope flutter away from me. I was terrified, and I instantly didn't know how to process any of it. Cancer is a scary word. It's a terrifying experience. You never know what could happen. And when it is tied to your hormones and parts of your body that are critical to be a mother, to biologically be a mother, it's scary. I'm sitting there with my dad, and we are processing all of this at once. And it was not an easy thing to process at all. Because in my mind, I'd always thought, I'm going to be a mom someday. I am eventually going to be a parent. I am eventually going to do all of these things. And I didn't know how to process any of what was coming. Sorry, mic difficulties. But yeah, I started really struggling with what it was going to look like and what my life was going to look like. And hold on, we're going to fix this. Because I like, stay there. Maybe it'll cooperate that way. Okay. Sorry about that. So it was scary because the thought of losing that feminine ability to be a mom, or the feminine ability to potentially have kids down the line, it felt like essentially ripped away, was really scary, because I'm sitting there going, I am dating someone 6 years younger than me that lives 1,000 miles away from me, that wants kids and is going to want that, and I am not even sure I can do that. I don't, what is this going to look like? So the conversations weren't had at that moment. We went to the car. I called my mom. My mom and I cried a lot. In that conversation, I called my now ex and told him the situation, and he and I had a cry, and he said, whatever it is, we'll figure it out. And in that moment, the only thing that was sitting in my brain is you have cancer. You have cancer. You have cancer. And I was lucky. I'm extremely blessed that it was caught when it was caught, and that it was caught at stage 1. I'm extremely lucky. I am one of the rare cases that doesn't have to go through chemo, or didn't have to go through chemo or radiation. It was surgically removed, and I had options. And we went through the ringer of fertility rescue conversations. I talked to several clinics, and for those that don't know, fertility rescue is when you retrieve your eggs and freeze them because you have a health circumstance or situation that is going to make it very difficult for you, or makes it where you have to remove your ovaries or remove that part of your anatomy. And I looked at the options, and by the time I did the numbers and looked at everything, I would pay 6 figures for a 40% chance of having a child, 30 to 40% chance of having a child. And that was on a positive, if you get this many eggs conversation, which I wasn't very confident that that's what I was going to get. So my inability to be a mom in a biological sense was not the reason that my ex and I broke up, but I do think it played a factor into it, because he genuinely wanted a family. It was a goal for him, and I wasn't really sure that there was something I could do. So after that relationship ended, and as I had gotten a little further into the reality that came, because it essentially felt like with that diagnosis, I was saying goodbye to the person that existed before the car accident at 27, and the woman that was walking into cancer and how to move forward at 28. That was hard. I took time to process it because I was visiting with the doctor pretty frequently, and they were working with me on the best courses of action. I was monitoring it. She had suggested as a preventative medicine to do a full hysterectomy because it would be a bigger guarantee that I wouldn't face any complications down the road in my life. But I was single at the end of 21 and met my now boyfriend and started dating him in the beginning of 22. And the first conversations we had were pretty serious because I was like, and it was before we were even dating. We were kind of at the bar as a group of friends. And he was like, I don't know how the conversation fully came into play, but I kind of was like, I'm battling a lot because I have stage 1 ovarian cancer and I'm trying to make the decisions on if I want to do fertility rescue to have kids. And he was like, I don't want kids. I don't think I want kids, or that's not a high priority for me. And when we started dating, the first year we were dating in 22 was a lot of conversations about it and a lot of repeats and a lot of, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And the conversation always came back to, if we want kids, we'll adopt. And the weight lifted. So in 23, I had a full hysterectomy and equally scary surgery, longer recovery time, and a whole new list of problems that came with it. I'm not upset I did it. I don't regret the decision to have the surgery, but it has complicated my life immensely. I was 30 years old, having a full hysterectomy, going from not really hitting the menopause spectrum yet to we've skipped every step of menopause and you are just done. No, and the hormones are gone and everything's just, you get what you get kind of thing. The surgery and the recovery was really difficult. I had a harder time coming out of anesthesia. I really struggled at home for a while. It took me 2 months to fully feel like I could actually function like a normal human being again, which didn't take me that long with the first surgery. So more extensive surgery though, so I get that. But the hormone loss was the hardest. Figured out I had undiagnosed PCOS recently, and with what I went through, it makes a lot of sense. I was really moody, big mood swings, hot flashes, kind of all the crazy whirlwind that you can think of that comes from menopause. Having that at 30 was really rough. I think my boyfriend is a saint because he survived it and didn't leave me in the middle of it. But I have been battling my body a little bit ever since because I have gained a bunch of weight that I didn't have. I have emotional struggles like mood swings and things like that I didn't have quite as much of before. I cry for different reasons than I used to. I felt like I lost my body. I lost me a little bit, and I've been rebuilding, and it is an everyday learning curve and crazy circumstance and situation. Having the surgery and healing from the surgery, it kind of made everybody seem like, oh, well, now it's over and done and everything's sunshine and rainbows. And it wasn't. It still isn't. It's still hard. The parts that people didn't see was the mental toll it took on me, which is the part that I've been trying to heal with on top of the weight. I'm working on getting my weight back on track. I'm working with doctors and stuff now, and we'll do a whole conversation about that the further I get into it. I want to let the doctor situation with that kind of fully come to fruition before we dig into that. But my mental health went through the ringer in the last 2 years. Everybody kind of saw the surgery, the diagnosis, the recovery, all the bits and pieces, but no one was really seeing the mental, to the full extent that I think existed at that point. I had a major identity crisis because I had always had it in my brain I was going to follow along with all of the girls that I had been friends with that ironically quit being my friends right around the time that my world went to hell with cancer. Because I thought I'd always be a mom. I always thought that was a path I was going towards, and it never occurred to me that there was a very strong potential that I would not ever have that title. The hardest part of it for me wasn't that I would not be a mom. The hardest part of it for me was that my parents would never be grandparents biologically with a child. And I struggled with that a lot. And it's still something that really hits me and really affects my emotions. But at the same time, my parents have been so graceful with this to the best of their abilities. And my diagnosis was scary. And I think them having to come to terms with the same things that I did of, she's not going to be a mom biologically. I'm not going to have grandkids biologically. There's always a chance for adoption and a thought for adoption, and that's something that's in the back of my brain and can be a potential. It's not in the cards at the moment, and I don't think it's in the cards in the near future, but it's a thought. But that sense of motherhood and that sense of womanhood that comes with it, it felt like I had it ripped away from me without really having the opportunity to really grieve it or really process it, because I had to make the decisions quick, and I felt like I needed to make the decisions quick to make the best decision. But I grieve it. I feel hollow at times from it. And the way the world is now with society and the views of women and what makes a woman and what is womanhood and the arguments that come from both sides, I felt like I didn't have a place, and I felt scared of that. But in the last few years, I've been doing a lot of grounding and a lot of reading the Bible, oddly enough. I was not a big religion person, but that's episode 3, so we'll be talking about that later. But I started recognizing that there were other ways to feel that sense of motherly advice, and I think doing this podcast is a little way for me to do that. But I know that if I was not making the decision to be cremated and I decided to bury my body, my bones would identify as a female. I'm a woman. My health forcibly removing my female reproductive organs doesn't lessen that. It's a hard thing for me to have society battling so hard over what is a woman, because in my world and in my way, it feels like it's an attack on me and the situation that I'm in, because it feels like it's not being cherished as much as it should be. Because being a woman is something to cherish, and it's something to have that value in and love your body. Even when you gain weight or you have cancer, or you have a situation like me, or you have another health problem, or any of those things, especially the ones that are connected to being a woman, like, it shouldn't take away from it. I always fear what other people are going to think of me, or at least I did. But I don't think people fully recognize the fact that it takes a substantial amount of time to start loving yourself again and start loving your body again. And I mourned the life I left behind, but I am really, truly excited about the life that I'm building and the healing I'm doing with my body and the healing I'm doing mentally with this situation, so that I can be a strong voice and a proud voice moving forward. That being said, I appreciate everyone letting me be vulnerable and honest today. My next episode is going to be talking about my spiritual and religious journey. And we're going to dive a little further back into my life than in my health journey in the last few years. But it's a cool chapter, and I think it's going to be equally as fun. And I can't wait to share with you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day, night, whenever you watch this, and stay tuned.